Alright, so today we're going to build a training plan for my upcoming Hyrox race in Hong Kong, which is going to be in July the 28th. So I'm not a coach or anything, and for most of my training I'm self-coached. So for any of the information in this video, take it with a grain of salt. Right, so it's not my first time building any kind of training plans. I've done one last year, although that was very rough and I didn't have much experience when I first built my first base building training plan about a year ago. I've since learned a lot about training in general, about training zones, the kind of intensity I should be going at, and after running for a year you kind of get to know a lot more about your body, how much intensity you can handle, how to balance volume versus intensity, all that kind of stuff. So with that kind of experience, I'm kind of excited to sort of build a new training plan with that kind of knowledge that I've been gaining, even though I'm sort of still a kind of a beginner since I've only been doing this for a year and a half. So this video is mostly just going to be for myself, for my own record, and if anyone who's also just starting out like me, you might be finding this useful as well, hopefully, since a lot of the content on YouTube is really geared towards like the very elite level people, or it's more of people who are already very experienced in making those kind of videos. So if you're someone who has not that much experience, maybe you can relate to this video a bit more. And if you do have a lot more experience, please let me know if I'm doing anything wrong, because I'm still like very early in this journey and I have a lot to learn. So correct me if I'm saying anything wrong, and yeah, feel free to say anything in the comments, and I'm happy to learn more about fitness in general. To start with, let's start aligning my goals with the plan. So mostly I'm just looking forward to finishing the Hyrox. I don't really have any sort of time-bound goals, since it's really my first time doing the whole thing, and I'm doing it with my brother. He's not here in Hong Kong with me right now, so I can't really do a lot of practice with him. So mostly the goal for this race is just to finish it, and something that I'm really looking to gain out of it is to get a stronger base for my upcoming half marathon race in November. So really tackling my weaknesses that I learned from my last marathon, which is mostly my muscular endurance, and I feel like a lot of the movements in Hyrox is really geared towards endurance more than strength, even though like strength is like a big part of it too, but that's not really its main focus. It's more about like power generation and a lot of high repetitions. So I feel like it's going to be a good way for me to not just experience something new, but also really use this as an experience to improve the things that I have to really work on. And also another thing that I'm really looking to gain out of this sort of Hyrox prep is to just build general conditioning for all of my martial arts stuff. So I've been doing a lot less martial arts lately, just because I've been focusing a lot more on running, and I don't really have the time to do everything since I have work and I also have school, and running already takes up a lot of my time. So after this race, hopefully I'll have better conditioning and I'll have a better base to make a lot of the martial arts training a lot easier. There's a Hong Kong competition coming in November, and I feel like all of this is gonna help a lot with the conditioning that I'm gonna do. So having a better base is going to help with my sort of skill development. So I can add the skill on top of a really solid base. So I feel like that something is going to be quite useful. Right, and just to talk about how I'm going to be structuring this, I'm going to be breaking it down into macro cycle. So it's just one macro cycle, since a macro cycle is sort of say a 4 to 6 month block where you're really aiming at one big race at the end of it, or it could be like multiple races within a season. So that's generally a macro cycle. It's over a season long. So since this currently it's April, and the race is going to be in July. I'm going to have a 4-month macro cycle, right? And I'm going to have different blocks within it. Some people call this a mesocycle, I think, but generally I'm going to be breaking this into 4 blocks. So in April, it's going to be focusing on base training, and then the second 2 blocks are going to be focusing on either threshold, so between my LT1 and LT2 thresholds. A lot of Hyrox stuff is going to be really doing it at LT2. It's not going to be that long a race, probably like an hour and a half, and a lot of it is going to be dependent on how much work I can do at my LT2. So working with a lot of lactate buildup, being able to clear it quickly is going to be very important in Hyrox, since the intensity will be quite high. So learning how to clear lactate from my blood is going to be a big focus, and I'm going to be placing that first. And then in the second build, I'm going to be doing a lot more power and speed. So pushing up my ceiling for the speed. A lot of Hyrox movement also requires a lot of power. So power is strength and speed. So for example, strength is just, for example, pushing a very heavy weight, but you can do it slowly, so you can push a lot of weight. But that's not the most powerful because it's not the fastest. And if you're not about speed, you can throw something very quickly, do a lot of reps quickly if the weight is very light, but it's not a lot of strength because the weight is light, if that makes sense. So power is strength times speed. So this is going to be important. Speed, that's going to be my top end speed. A lot of hill sprints, VO2 max stuff, going to be in the second build phase. And the first one, I just want to add probably, that means speed endurance is what I meant by threshold. So along with increasing my lactate threshold, a lot of it is going to be understanding what kind of race pace I could go at. That's going to be important. And the last pace is going to be peak and taper. So I'm going to have to try and find out what's the last really intense session. When is the last really intense session it's going to be? So your body can store fitness for different amounts of time before it starts declining, and ideally you want to place ideally you want to do the last session right at a time before your body starts to lose that kind of fitness. So usually that's like 1 or 2 weeks before the actual event. We have to do more research on when your last really heavy strength training is going to be, when your last long run is going to be. Usually that's 2 weeks. So this phase is going to be practicing a lot of race specific work. So really going through the transitions for movements, doing compromised running. That's going to be big during the peak phase. And in base, a lot of it's going to be aerobic running. And touching each pace zone so that my body doesn't forget what each intensity feels like. So this is the macro cycle. This is a mesocycle, and there's also a microcycle, which is going to be my weekly stuff. So I'm going to get into that shortly. But mostly that's just going to be mixing in different kind of workouts within a week, and doing my easier stuff very easy to ensure that I'm fresh enough to tackle the really key sessions of the week. So that's the main thing. Right, so I'm going to talk about how I'm going to be measuring the sort of intensity for the workouts that I'm going to be doing. a lot of metrics that people use include like heart rate, lactate. I don't have a lactate meter, and I don't think I'm advanced enough to use it, and feeling. So how my body is feeling, all that are good metrics, because in a race you're not really going to be caring about what your heart rate is or how much lactate's in your blood. It's all about how confident you are in sustaining a certain pace for the duration of the race, and understanding when you are pushing too hard, so that you have to slow down a little bit so that you your blood lactate doesn't spike and you don't have to take very long to recover. So you really want to edge. Edging is very important. Edging, that's really the main focus. The very important part of all of endurance racing is edging. Not going too hard, but like going just hard enough. I hope there's a better word for it, but that's what I'm calling it for now. Right, so back to this topic. So really, intensity is just how I like to think of it is effort, and also duration. So, for example, if you're doing a sprint, just one rep for like a few seconds, it's not as much training load as compared to like a 2-hour very easy run. So like a 2-hour very easy run, even though the effort might be lower just because you're working a little bit easier, but the duration's very much longer than like a few seconds of sprinting. So understanding those two is going to be very important, because that's going to dictate how we structure the individual workouts for different phases of my training block. So, and another thing to sort of understand is how I'm going to be classifying all of my runs. I like to use this sort of graph, like the lactate graph. Didn't draw this deep enough, but right. So I could have drawn nicer, but to make my point is that at this point the lactate's going to be spiking a lot, and it's going to take a lot more time for it to slow down again, and we call that the LT2 from what I understand. And LT1 is when your blood starts to create more lactate. And what lactate is a byproduct of burning glycogen. So at very easy sort of efforts, your body's using fat, so it doesn't burn glycogen. That's why it doesn't release the byproduct of lactate. So, and then once you cross over to LT1, that's when it goes into a different energy system. So it starts to burn glycogen, right? And then lactate is what causes your body to feel fatigue, kind of. And within this region, I call this threshold. Even though your body's making lactate, it clears it fast enough so that it doesn't accumulate too much. And once it crosses this threshold, LT2, it starts to accumulate a lot, and it doesn't clear quick enough for you to continue on. So that's why anything above the threshold LT2, you need more time to recover from, and it's hard to sustain that kind of effort for very long. So of course, during a race, you want to edge it right in this region, right at LT2, so you can sustain a very hard effort for a long time without having to, we call it exploding in Cantonese, going too hard where you have to like slow down drastically. Some people call it hitting the wall, but hitting the wall more, closely more related to like running out of fuel, but going above your threshold for too long, you're gonna have problems during a race, just because you have to like stop. Right, so, and within these this graph, in the easiest zone, it's going to be my recovery runs. So right here, you want to feel fresher than when you started out. Here, it's going to be my aerobic runs. I separated them, the two of these, into two different kind of runs. Easy just means I could walk if I need to. I think a really gave up on my ego when I started walking on my easy runs. Like that just looks atrocious on Strava, looking at your pace and everything. But for easy runs, I feel like it's very important for you, as a beginner, to understand that it is okay to start walking. Just because you can get your heart rate a lot lower than if you continue on for a longer period. Heart rate drift is a lot easier to happen if you just continue running for a long time, even though it's at an easy effort. So all my easy runs just means it's usually either before or after a hard day, and I really want to be fresh to capitalize on the harder sessions during the week. So easy runs and aerobic runs, a little bit harder, really edging LT1. So before my body starts to make any kind of lactate, but so right before a point where I start making any lactate, I want to sustain that kind of effort for as long as possible. Basically, I could go on forever if I wanted to in that kind of effort, which is my aerobic runs. So a lot of my long runs are going to be at that zone. Some people call it zone 2. So to sort of break this down a little bit further, easy could mean like zone 1, aerobic would be like zone 2, and then closer to LT1 would be like my marathon effort stuff. I don't think I have to do a lot of work in that zone for Hyrox training, just because it's not that race specific. A lot more work is going to be done at LT2, but I'm going to include some of my LT1 work, zone 3 stuff, just to get my body a different stimulus and to run a little bit faster than aerobic pace. So this is going to be my marathon pace stuff. Yeah, not a lot of work is going to be done at that kind of intensity, I don't think. And at zone 4, which is my LT2 threshold, that's a lot of race pace stuff. So during the second block of my the build phase, a lot of runs are going to be at this intensity. I think that's the hardest intensity to get right, just because you really need to teach your body you need to teach your body to understand that kind of effort. It requires like very precise pacing, and just to not go too far over that threshold to make it into a different kind of run that gives your body a different stimulus. So this requires like very precise pacing, and I feel like that's a skill that's very important to learn when controlling paces during a race. So this is my threshold runs. And to give a little bit more explanation on that kind of effort, it should feel like you can finish one whole sentence if someone's talking to you. So like you can answer what you had for lunch, or how's your day going, like a short sentence in that kind of threshold zone. And then in zone 5, it's gonna be like my VO2 max stuff. A lot of 400 meter repeats with almost like a 75% rest ratio. So 4x4 minutes of hard running, and then 3 minutes of rest in between. That's a typical VO2 max workout. Or maybe like 400 meter repeats. I'm not that fast a runner. I run them at like around 90 seconds for my 400 meters. So I rest around like 75 seconds for those kind of reps, and I do around like 10 of those. So that's kind of VO2 max kind of workout. And then in zone 6, some people have this zone. That's really your ATP stuff, from what I understand. So maybe like a 10-second burst of sprinting uphill, something like that. That's a little bit too specific, I think, and I'm not going to get too much benefit from training a lot of that. So most of my training runs is going to be focusing on zone 1, zone 2, zone 4, and 5. And they're going to be spread out in different blocks of my training. So this is how I'm going to be measuring the intensity. And one analogy that I like to make regarding like intensity and lactate is imagining like how much work your boss is giving you. So in zone 1 and 2, like you're sitting at work the whole day, not having much to do, like you're on YouTube and everything, so you have a lot of time to get everything cleared out, and you can do that for as long as you want because there's not much work to do. And in zone 3 and 4, your boss is giving you more work, so you're more occupied at the office, but you don't have to OT, you don't have to overtime. You can finish everything before end of day. So that's zone 3 and 4. There's no overworking. And zone 5 and above, you're gonna have to OT. It's too much work for you to do during the day, and it's gonna have to leave until the next day, which is why anything above the threshold requires like a lot longer recovery time. So that's why a lot of the training is going to be below the threshold. Around 80% of my training is going to be below the threshold. Different training blocks will have like a different sort of ratio for them, and I'll explain them in a bit, but for the most part, around 80% is going to be under zone 5. So just from zone 1 to zone 4, it's going to be 80% in all of my training blocks actually. So that's going to be how I am going to be structuring a lot of this stuff. Right, and I'm going to be going over a little bit about the types of runs that I'm going to be doing for all of these blocks, just to give a little bit more context on the types of stuff that I'm going to be doing, right? The types of workouts, that's going to be the individual ingredients in this training plan. So I have easy and aerobic. I think I've explained that a little bit. The differences between those two, I like to think of them as different. Some people treat them the same, but easy just means I could walk, and aerobic means more continuous. Try to give myself more aerobic development and learn how to burn fat in those two zones. LT1, marathon pace. Usually I'm going to mix it with like other paces. It's not going to be one workout where I just go at marathon pace. I'm not really training for a marathon, so it doesn't make sense for me to do a lot of work in that zone. So LT1, it's going to be like a transitional kind of zone where I'm not going too fast, not going too slow. Not a lot of work is going to be done. Zone 4 is going to be the big focus. A lot of race pace controlling, understanding how to edge, and then these are going to be hill sprints and 400 meter repeats. Also 4x4s. Some of the example workouts, these two I don't have to explain too much, just like they're mostly time based, so like 30 minutes, just like go out and run. This perhaps I'm going to include this in my long runs. So if I get bored during the middle of a long run, I'll mix in some of the little bit faster paces just to get my body a little bit different feeling. These perhaps like a 12 times 1 kilometer with 250 meters of float. These I'm going to be running at my half marathon to 10K pace. So to give you a little bit more context as well, the last 10K race I ran like 46:45, and half marathon time was around like 2 hours marathon 4:14 something, I think. Right, so I wasn't really the fittest for this one, so I'm gonna take that out. And I think the most relevant one is this. And with this, I calculated my pace zones for my runs. So another important concept for my pace zones, I forgot to mention that. So yeah, pace zones. What that means is, other than my effort zones, so these are all effort based, how I'm feeling, how many words I can get out. Some people use that test, like if it's easy, it's very conversational, people won't know if you're working out or not if they start talking to you. Aerobic, you kind of have a few breaths in between, so like if you're talking to someone on the phone while you're on a run, people can tell you're on a run. Yeah, stuff like that. And then with pace zones, a little bit more specific. So and they can help you to have a target when you're actually running on a workout. So I'll let you know what my pace zones are. So my threshold is around like 4:45 per kilometer to around 5:05. So that's my threshold. Where I'm gonna be aiming a lot for the pace for these kind of workouts. And easy, probably like 6.5 minutes per kilometer. If I go any slower than this, I feel like my form kind of deteriorates. So I feel like it's doing me more harm than good. So I just start walking if I get anything slower than a 6:30 per kilometer pace. I feel like there is something as too slow. So if you cross that threshold where your body doesn't feel natural for it to run anymore, I think it's better to start walking than to introduce some poor running mechanics into your habit. So easy around 6:30 per kilometer. Aerobic is around 6 minutes. And then my marathon pace should be around like 5:30 per kilometer. Anything zone 5, I feel like I could just go as hard as I want, but theoretically I should have a little bit of juice left at the end of each rep. So if I wanted to go harder on each rep, I should have a few seconds more of effort to give it. Like I could go a few seconds faster for each of those reps for my VO2 max work. Right, so let's start taking a look at what the focus is in this phase, which is aerobic. And then touch on some speed and really start getting to know the Hyrox movements. And how I'm going to be dividing my workouts in this ratio is going to be like a pyramidal model. And then 80% is going to be easy. And 15% done at my threshold. And 5% at a hard effort. And the focus of this is to really get my body to be accustomed to a higher volume so I can get more quality workouts in that sort of in my body. So and to ensure my body can handle more higher intensity stuff in the upcoming training blocks. I'll use an analogy to explain it a little bit more later. So Monday, usually it's going to be my aerobic day. Tuesday, hard hill sprints around like 10 times 30 seconds with 90 seconds rest. Why I want more rest than work is to make it a little bit easier on my body. So fast doesn't mean hard all the time. If you get your body enough rest, you can make the faster stuff a little bit easier on you. So that's why I do like 30 seconds of hard sprinting uphill and 90 seconds of rest. The 30 seconds of sprinting should feel like somewhere around 5k pace. So that's how I'll be pacing those hill sprints. And the 90 second rest is just going to be me walking or jogging back down the hill again. That's how long it takes usually for me to jog back down the hill I sprinted up to. So Wednesday, it's going to be easy. a recovery run. Thursday is going to be my Hyrox circuit. Usually I take a class where there's a coach teaching all of the movements and everything, but this is going to be an LT2 effort, between LT1 and LT2. So ideally that's how I'm going to be feeling on those days. Friday is going to be an easy day again. Saturday is going to be my long run. And my long runs currently aren't really that long. They're around 16 to 20k. So not as long as they were during the peak of my marathon training, but I don't think that's too big an issue. I really have to build myself up to running for longer again, and it's also getting hotter in Hong Kong. I'm not sure a very long one's going to be doing me a lot of good anyways. So Saturday's my long run, Sunday probably rest. And in all of these weeks, all the workouts are going to be the same actually, but the volume is going to increase week by week. So either I'm going to be trying to get myself more time on feet, more mileage. Volume is really what I'm trying to build in this phase. So how I'm going to be progressing here is just to add volume. And the weekly structure is going to be remaining mostly the same. Right, and then in May, which is going to be my build phase, there's going to be a high emphasis on the LT2 sort of effort. The general structure in May, I might turn the microcycle into like a 10-day structure so that I'm able to hit every pace zones within 10 days. Because I feel like hitting every pace zones within 1 week is a little bit hard. You have to hit the very high intensity stuff and also like a lot of threshold work. And my body is just not going to be getting enough rest to do both. So splitting it up into a 10-day microcycle is going to make it a lot easier to hit all the pace zones, giving my body different stimuli within a microcycle. And in the pyramid, now there's going to be like a lot higher focus on the threshold work. Yeah, so around it. Yeah, actually 95% of it is still under the LT2 threshold. So I hope recovery is not going to be like really grueling, but the volume might decrease a little bit in this phase, just because I'm adding in a lot more high intensity work. Doing too much volume might compromise all of my harder stuff. So an example workout, I think I showed it before, it's like 12 times 1k repeats with 200 meters of jog. I'm going to be starting to add in a little bit more VO2 max work, so like 400 meter repeats, putting in a bigger mix of different pace zones within this block. In June, so the focus is going to be building a lot more power, and now I'm going to add in a lot more like 4x4s, a lot more hill sprints once again, different kind of speed workouts in this period just to ramp up the intensity a lot more. So how to ensure that I'm healing fast enough to handle all of this work, other than lowering the volume and running my easy runs easier. I like to think of it as like having a plate. So having a plate, this is how much your body can handle. So the plate equals your body, how much it can handle. And the rice is the easy stuff. And the meat is the quality sessions. And the garnish is all of the conditioning, all of the maintenance work that you're going to be doing. Right. And what I mean by this is, so for example, you have a lot of rice here, right? You don't want to eat the rice first and be full from it. So I know a lot of like the canteens in Hong Kong that give you a shit ton of rice, which is good. Rice is economical, and you do need a lot of it because it's cheap. It's the low-hanging fruit. You can pile up a lot of it and not have the dish be like super expensive. So you do want a lot of rice, but you don't want to eat too much rice and then you can't finish the meat. It's a chicken leg. I know it looks like a comma, but it's a chicken leg. So you don't want to be too full from the rice where you can't eat the meat properly. So you do want to finish the meat first, and then see how much rice you can finish. So, and how this translates to like in the training plan is you want to prioritize your quality sessions as much as possible, really. So another way to like ensure that you're really getting the quality sessions in is to get a bigger plate or to increase your appetite, which is like what the base building phase is for you to be able to absorb more volume and intensity, really prepping your body to be ready for it. Right, so lowering the volume just means eating less rice in the later build phases of it, and increasing the plate size or your appetite, how much food your body can take in, is the base phase where you're really building the volume for your body, having a very good foundation for all of the other training to be placed upon. Right, and I'm going to talk a little bit about progression. So what kind of metrics I'm going to be using to kind of monitor my progress. So daily, it's really going to be how I'm feeling, and confidence. Because come race day, your body's not going to know what the heart rate is or how much lactate is in your blood. Really, it's about how you feel and how confident you are at tackling that kind of intensity for the full duration of the race, right? Weekly, it's going to be a lot of it is going to be recovery, and then are you adding in volume or intensity week by week, other than the deload weeks where you're taking a little bit less work, just so that your body can adapt to it, because it takes some time for the effect of a workout to settle in, perhaps like a week or two before you can see the results of it. Right, and blocks. So within a block, you really should be attaining the goals that you set out to do. So I think I'm really hoping to improve in the areas that I talked about, like being able to handle more volume first, able to have a higher lactate threshold, and having higher VO2 max and more power, and finally putting it all together to have a very good race. And hopefully within each of the training cycles that I'll be doing, the foundation's going to be there the next time I start a new training cycle. So this is, for example, my marathon training that ended in Feb, and I'm going to be starting this one soon in April, where I sort of already have a kind of baseline fitness that I could work from, even though I took a short period of rest. And in the next one, where I'm targeting for my half marathon and the home Kuhn competition in November, which I'm going to start in August, hopefully, all the work that I've done for Hyrox is going to carry over to my next training cycle. So yeah, this is generally it for my entire training plan. I kind of walk you through the whole process, and I will probably attach the full plan to the description of the video here. And yeah, the next step of this is just to do all of the work that's involved in the plan, and hopefully it will work out. And a big thing is going to be me figuring out how much volume and intensity my body's able to handle, and figuring out my weaknesses along the way so that I know what to work on. A big thing about being self-coached is that there's always a lot to learn, and which is why your input's going to be very much valued. And yeah, I'm going to have to talk to more people who are more experienced than me to learn more from them. And I know a few of my viewers have been very kind enough to sort of reach out to me and let me know that they have some kind of background in fitness and everything. So I might reach out to you as well to discuss this. And yeah, hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for your time if you stayed the whole way through. So I will keep you posted. Yeah, thanks for watching.